Ladies and gentlemen, at what point do you know it's time to take the training wheels off? If you keep them on forever, you won't see the true depth of your potential. But if you remove them too early, you will crash. Well, it is with great shame I inform you that Bethesda crashed. They took off the training wheels, which in this case are the established universes of Elder Scrolls and Fallout, and tried to ride their way into a new IP, only to regress and downgrade on every feature of their prior games. Without the charm of decades worth of writing and world building to stand on, Bethesda's incompetence shines brighter than anything in the galaxy. I didn't have high expectations for Starfield after being stung by Fallout 4. All I wanted was a compelling universe and Bethesda's unrivaled exploration, and sadly, neither are to be found. One important thing that needs to be abundantly clear is that Starfield is not Space Skyrim, nor is it Space Fallout, because it's space nothing. The use of the cosmos in the case of Starfield is merely a half-ass excuse for the story to have some matter to stand on, but as a playable sandbox, it is merely 100 cradles with star ornaments for babies to blissfully drool over and not notice how half-baked all of the systems are. At no point during the game do you explore space. You move from the orbit of one planetary GIF to the next via fast traveling. That's right, a mechanic that was an optional quality of life time saver in every past Bethesda game is now the means of exploration. From orbit, you open up a menu and fast travel to a planet. At no point do you have to interact with your ship's systems. It's not like you sit in your cockpit and play around with an immersive screen to plan your route. No, you have to go through menus. Flying towards the planet won't bring you any closer, and from within the planet itself, you cannot use your spaceship to roam around and find content or an ideal spot for an outpost. Expecting this or something similar is not absurd, as this isn't groundbreaking technology. No Man's Sky has been doing it for years, but Bethesda didn't go that route because there are no planets. All you get are empty sandboxes in which you can plant a flag and engage with the Outpost Building system. Outside of the small handcrafted planets, there is no content and there is no exploration. There's only admittedly beautiful views and mesmerizing lights. Which brings me to the first half-baked system, Outpost Building. I really narrowed down my focus towards creating a grand outpost that would have most of the resources I'd need for future expenditure. This cost me dozens of hours and it was fun throughout because I felt like I was materializing an idea I conjured up. But then, I did it. I got the base I set out to make, and all those hours spent didn't amount to much. Sure, I can farm XP by building components or develop an addiction by schmixing up the best homemade crack, but I can't really do anything that connects to other aspects of the game. This is a complete downgrade of the settlement building system in Fallout 4, where building a settlement fits the game's whole theme of rebuilding the Commonwealth. Doing so would net you a place to store your goods, upgrade them, showcase collectibles, and cultivate people to turn your settlement into a commercial center. Not to mention you had creative freedom to build rooms and areas to match your imagination, because the system gave you the tools for that. Here in Starfield, the most I have is prefixed ugly pods, and worse yet is the fact that to enter them I need to build an airlock. I would love if someone could explain to me why I need to walk through 2 doorways to get into my padless prison when the planet I'm on doesn't even require I wear a goddamn spacesuit. Furthermore, here in Starfield I can't craft unique or experimental parts for my ship, so it has no connection to the space exploration this game pretends it has. I can't craft ammo, so no matter what I cannot be self-sufficient on my planet of choice because I'll have to rely on a merchant. And I can't craft unique weapons or armors. All I can do that has any semblance of value is add mods to my equipment. Which brings me to the second half-baked system, combat. This one is a bit conflicting for me, because on one side of the spectrum you have really cool weapons, like truly very elegant sci-fi weapon designs. Modding and augmenting them to fit your niche is really fun. And despite the combat being generic shooty shoot with spongy NPCs that have horrendous AI, it's still fun just because of the shiny toys you can try out, like this polished noob tube shotgun, or this weird Dorito that you can mod literal war criminal bullets onto. There's also the cover system, which doesn't really have any significance in the combat, but it's a nice addition for LARPing as a hitman. But then there's the other side of the spectrum. Melee combat in Starfield is quite possibly the worst out of any Bethesda game to date. Hell, it's even worse than early access survival games. You only get one melee weapon. Now if you played Starfield, you might be thinking that I'm delusional, because there's clearly more than one melee weapon. Or maybe it's you who is delusional for thinking a different skin equates to a different weapon. Because all of the melee weapons follow the same swipe, 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 pause attack pattern, with no difference in speed, making it so that the only real difference between the British Hello and the Katana is the inherent damage they come with, an attribute that you cannot modify because there is no modding for melee weapons. The rink-a-dink piece of shit you get is all you get. To add insult to injury, of course, there are also no cool melee weapons. It's quite baffling how the game goes from these cool sci-fi designs to shady kitchen utensils and geometric shapes. Funnily enough, Bethesda themselves don't even consider melee weapons as weapons, because you cannot display them in weapon racks or display cases. The skills don't address any of the issues with melee either, as all of them are just arbitrary number modifiers. You don't get any new moves, or increased attack speed, or a higher likelihood to cripple enemies, as limb damage does not exist in Starfield. This is a complete regression over Fallout 4, where not only did you have perks that would work in tandem with others to resemble a build, but you also had different attack patterns for different weapons that furthermore could be modified. Since Starfield is a pseudo-space game, you also have space combat, and it's... I didn't find it to be offensively bad, but I can't call it engaging either. In essence, sometimes in orbit you will get random encounters. These can be a short dialogue exchange or a hostile assault. Now if it's the latter, you'll have to defend yourself in a manner that requires minimal input and virtually no thought, as the space engagements are nothing more than tanking damage and hoping your armaments prevail first. There's no flare system to rely on and time properly, nor is there any way to outmaneuver them by incorporating dogfighting tactics. This is baffling considering that we're in space. Why does a game more based on realism like Battlefield 3 provide better air-to-air combat than a sci-fi game set 300 years in the future? Hell, even Chicken Invaders is a far more engaging take on space warfare. One cool thing that you can do in Starfield space combat is immobilize enemy ships and board them to get rid of the crew and take control of the vessel. Which brings me to the third half-baked system, shipbuilding. I adore shipbuilding. Any system a game gives me to self-insert and let my imagination be the driving force for creative results is a good system. As such, I spent dozens of hours countlessly warping from Pseudospace 1 to Pseudospace 2 and hoping to get encounters with hostile ships to level up my piloting skill. After some hours, I was qualified to augment my ship to my heart's content, and I did just that, only to realize that aside from the feeling of fulfillment you get for completing something you set your eyes to, there's no merit to the system whatsoever. You know why? Because you're not in space!
What a gamer.
If you're traveling to a known location, which you'll be doing often as this game is far smaller than it appears, then you don't even see a loading screen of your ship warping. You just appear wherever you travel to. And since you can't use your ship as a means of transportation on planets, the only times you'll see it are when it collects dust in spaceports or when you travel to an unvisited point of interest for the first time. Do you see the trend here? Bethesda implemented features to a functional degree so that they can say our game is this, our game has that, but didn't bother to add any depth or in-universe relevance to them. If you take away Outpost Building, if you take away Spaceship Building, if you take away Melee altogether, this game will not change in the slightest, because those systems are irrelevant to the curated experience, which is condensed into roughly 9 star systems. Realistically, it could be condensed into 1 star system with a handful of planets, but that does not sound as good as unparalleled freedom in space. So you might be saying to yourself, those systems are soulless and shallow because Bethesda's focus was on making sure they deliver a next generation role-playing game. It may seem like Bethesda learned from Fallout 4 by bringing back a more traditional dialogue box, one that has numerous options relating to your skills and affiliations, but it's still the same yes, no, actually yes, skill related yes, and sarcastic yes. You don't get to make any meaningful decisions. All you get is the illusion of choice. Take one of the story quests for example. You're negotiating with a kid for an artifact. Prior to negotiation starting, your partner lets you know that he doesn't mind paying double. Maybe I really hate the rich. I'm playing a sub 50 IQ Californian character on this playthrough, so I want to make sure he pays double. Well, that option never pops up anywhere in the conversation, despite the kid asking you for more money than agreed upon. Okay, fine. What if I'm playing a maniacal brute? I don't want to negotiate. I want to beat this kid to a pulp and grab the artifact. Well, the option for that is there, except it's actually an illusion. If you select to attack, your partner will talk you out of it. So why even bother giving me the option? To market this game as an RPG, of course. The path Bethesda laid out is the one you'll walk upon. Calling this game an RPG is an insult to games that actually let you roleplay. This is an action-adventure game with light RPG elements. A Telltale game meets surface-level looter-shooter, if you will. Throughout the game, you're on rails, going in a straight line, and occasionally you can divert the tracks to the left or to the right, before they immediately merge back into the same outcome. None of your decisions have any impact, none of your choices shape space or any of its colonies, nothing you do has consequences. And you can prove this to yourself by going to the headquarters of the Crimson Fleet, the bad pirate faction of the game. You can try to take matters in your own hands and bring justice to colonized space, but it won't amount to anything because every NPC there is coded to be essential. Why? Because they're tied to a questline, in which you will have the option to do exactly what you tried to do just a moment ago. You want them gone? Do the quest. Because Bethesda didn't prepare any writing in account of you playing the game your way. And as such, there's no killing allowed unless Bethesda gives you permission. The absence of meaningful choices could be forgiven if the confining narratives had well-delivered merit. Yet every time I allowed myself to get intrigued about something in Starfield, I was left disappointed. So much so that I had a hard time caring about anything because the accumulation of twists and turns always ended on an underwhelming note. The questline that made it most obvious to me is the UC Vanguard, one of the 4 major factions. As you join the Vanguard, you pass through a room full of displays that detail the history, faction, and mysteries of Starfield. One of these displays speaks of Londinian, a United Colony settlement that fell victim to the largest terramorph outbreak ever recorded. As I heard all of this, I couldn't help but think to myself that this is it. This is that one area in the game that acts as a skill check. With that, I had interest and motivation to continue with the questline. Doing so reveals that terramorphs are starting to appear in planets they have no business of being in, and you go on various quests to understand why and bring a stop to it. Long story short, you go to the heart of it all, Londinian. What was supposed to be the most exciting moment in the game thus far turned into the most underwhelming sequence of events I had the displeasure of experiencing. You get to Londinian, you go through preparations that make it seem like shit is about to go down, and then you walk through snow-filled structures fighting a maximum of like 3 terramorphs that pose only one threat, the threat of running out of ammo to kill their spongy ass. At no point did I feel like this is the heart of humanity's worst outbreak. There was no challenge, there was no intensity, there is no epic secret loot, there is nothing that makes Londinian more engaging than a randomly generated structure. Imagine if you're playing Fallout New Vegas, and instead of heeding the foreman's warning about the quarry being overrun with deathclaws, you walk through, only to encounter 3 deathclaws that just drain your ammo. It wouldn't be half of the memorable location it is. All Bethesda had to do was either live up to their writing and make this place seem like it is in complete chaos, or not blow smoke up their ass and instead have this place pop up as an intriguing point of interest. There are a few more things to cover. I won't go over bugs, as they are really the least of this game's issues, nor will I go over character creation that made some people mauled, because I do not care about any of that inane silliness. Lockpicking. I think Starfield has a great lockpicking minigame. I actually have to take a moment and think about what I do, which keeps me engaged in the game. Maybe it somehow speaks volumes about how the game itself is a snore field, but that's besides the point. In Skyrim and Fallout, I would randomly press buttons till I saw movement, whereas here, I have the tools, I have the destination, and all I must do is make it work. The problem is that expert and master locks, which take a more considerable amount of thought, oftentimes yield loot that is inferior to that of novice locks, to the point where I stopped engaging with this system altogether. Before we get to the story, there is one more nuisance to cover, and that's enemy variety. This is a space game set in the future, and yet the vast majority of your enemies are humans. Occasionally you get a robot or a big bug, but how are there no aliens, or LARPing factions, or anything creative? Hell, even the enemies that exist are bland beyond belief. Take Fallout New Vegas for example. You have scumbag factions like powder gangers, fiends, raiders, cons, who all exist in the universe for a reason and have quests related to them if you actually want to know why and for what they exist. In Starfield, you have a handful of factions that serve the exact same purpose. What do the Spacers want?
Money.
What do the Ecliptic want?
Money.
What do Crimson Fleet want?
Money.
What do Bounty Hunters want?
Money.
If you remove 3 out of the 4, nothing about the game changes at all. This is baffling because even in Skyrim, you had enemies that largely served the same purpose, but they had rhyme and reason to exist in the world. Draugr are the undead and you'll find them in burrows. Bandits are bandits and you'll find them in camps or caves. Falmer are deformed snow elves hidden deep below Skyrim. Here you'll find Crimson Comsock, and the same place you'll find Ecliptic Dickpic. Apart from the change in color, there is no difference.
Oh, but Serjuh, Crimson Fleet have a questline, dude, so you shouldn't have mentioned them.
Oh yeah? What is the questline about? Oh right, finding a big treasure chest to be rich, which is literally what the other pirate factions would want as well? Take the quest, slap it on another faction, and change every mention of Crimson Fleet to whatever faction you designated the quest to, and nothing changed. This wouldn't matter that much if this game wasn't being cooked for 8 years and advertised as Bethesda's next big thing for the premium price of 70 buckaroos. The gap between Skyrim and Fallout 4 is a measly 5 years, and yet even the most basic of Fallout 4 factions have more depth than any of these space goobers. Time for the cherry on top. The thing that Bethesda has never ever been known for. Story.
Chinga toda tu puta madre.
Yeah, it sucks, man. Someone at Bethesda saw a funny TikTok and was like, yeah, let's base an entire story around this.
I'm not retarded, but I like rocks.
That's all you do. You collect rocks because having more rocks will make you understand what the rocks do, which eventually leads you to acquiring Skyrim powers, because them's be special rocks. Where in Skyrim you would find word walls as cherry on top after clearing dungeons and acquiring the end chest, here you have to talk to an NPC, travel to the planet, walk 500 meters through a vast boring emptiness, enter room and float around to shiny lights till the spinny spins. And then enjoy a cutscene that gives you the power. Now repeat this process dozens of times. To make matters worse, the NPC you have to talk to is painfully bad.
You stupid
Idiots! You got the colors wrong. It's supposed to be blue stripes on a white backdrop. I could go on for hours about how garbage this game is, especially if we start thinking about the comically bad skill tree. But there's actual good games coming out soon, so I shouldn't give myself more unnecessary editing work. Ultimately, if you want to have fun, you will have fun. The same way a child enjoys playing with dog poop in sand. But I can't allow myself to lower my standards and enjoy a dung-filled pie just because it's made by a studio I once respected. So the final rating for Bethesda's most ambitious game yet is an astronomical
Starfield's ass
out of 10. That's about it. Don't forget to slap like, slap wife, it's Karub, and